Food, cooking, and cooking utensils. Taken from my book, We Kinda Talk. Well, just passing it on. Passing it on. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Advice is good, but when too many people get involved in giving advice, that can lead to confusion. Too many spoons in the pot cause a lot of confusion. My bread well butter already. I ain't care. My bread well butter already. So whenever life was good and one's desires were met, an individual's bread was well buttered already. And we see it in politics. Some people don't care if Good Friday fall on a Sunday. The bread buttered. So they don't care about people whose bread don't have a little butter on it. Things good with them. So they don't see, they don't hear, they don't know. Their bread buttered. It's all about them. Life good, boy. The eating high up on the hog. Life good. It was his bread and butter. Simply put, his livelihood. Mr. Clifford, the fisherman, going out to the sea to fish, fishing. That was his livelihood. That's how he made his bread and butter. And he would say sometimes, boy, let me go take my boat and go there. I go and see my light burning. Chip Chip. Who remembers Chip Chip? A coconut confectionery that delights the palates of many Grenadians. Chip Chip. You see it all kind of thing growing up, you know. Some people told me they never heard of Fonte. Well, Fonte, a ginger cake, very popular in Grenada during the 1950s and the 1960s. There was a man who lived on St. John Street called Mr. Bartholomew. Boy, he used to make and sell a good Fonte. Well, I don't know for sure if he used to make it. I know for sure he used to sell the ginger cake called Fonte. When last you had a Fonte? Sago porridge for breakfast. Grenadians traveled far and wide. Some went to the Panama Canal to work, some went to Cuba, here, there, and everywhere they went. Came back with a lot of ideas and different ideas concerning food. Sago porridge, popular in Grenada once. And sago, a starchy food derived from the sago plant, found in places like Indonesia and Malaysia. Well, I enjoyed it as a child in Grenada. The enjoyable banana fritters. Banana fritters is a fried delicacy made from ripe bananas, flour, cinnamon, nutmeg sometimes, and a touch of baking powder. Put a little essence there. Banana fritters. One thing I say about our parents and many other people all over Grenada, boy, they were good with their hands. They know how to make different things. A wide array of food. What about stale food? Yeah? That was a popular term on stale food. Simply put, any food that was left overnight, back then we called stale food. Well, people eating stale food like crazy nowadays, since they have so many refrigerators. When I was growing up, it was unthinkable to put cooked food in the refrigerator and eat it the next day. Some people never did that. Call it stale food. The very first person I saw do that was a man called Laro. Boy, used to mix the stale food with the newly cooked food. And he sat down and put it together and ate both. And when I came to America, I noticed how people cooked on Sunday. And some of them parcel out the food to eat every day. They place the food in the fridge and to be eaten on different days during the week. One person once told me, boy, the longer this food stay in the fridge, the better it tastes. So who knows? Probably bacteria tastes nice. I don't know. You could tell me. You can't eat your cake and have it. No. Simply put, you cannot have it both ways. Decide what you want. The saying got morphed into you can't have your cake and eat it too. Although some fellas didn't believe that at all. They want Kate, they want Edith, they want Mary, they want Susan, and some of them can't even bust a boil. But they want everybody. But the food ride in my chest. The food ride in my chest. My body boiling and this food ride in my chest. Another way of complaining of indigestion. Reference to the food ride in one's chest suggests that the food has not settled inside of the stomach. And the stomach will rumble and you feel bad. And grandma, you can remember grandma shouting out, boy, don't eat too much asham, you go puff. You ever puff? Puffing was another term for food poisoning. It was signified by the emission of bad gas polluting the air. And one was advised to take a purge, take some Cinepod, castor oil, to cleanse the body. Yeah. An advice from the past. Sonny boy, put something warm in your chest before you leave the house now. Put something warm in your chest. An encouragement to have tea or to have, sometimes it goes all the way to breakfast. Something warm before leaving the house on mornings. Some people used to say, well, it helps break the gas in your stomach. So put something warm in your chest before you leave the house. And some of us still believe that we ain't leaving the house without having a hot cup of cocoa tea or something like that. One man's meat is another man's poison. This expression is not to be interpreted literally as a reference to food. It could mean other things. You see, people have different tastes and preferences. Although there are some people on Facebook that want everybody to like what they like. What is good and pleasant for an individual does not necessarily mean it will please somebody else. We must understand that. How about the saying, she gave him sweet rice to eat? I used to think that was a joke. Now this was a saying that stemmed from the belief that a woman stooped naked over steaming or boiling rice and then gave a man the rice to eat. It was, and probably still believed, that the ritual gave woman a hold over the men, something akin to slavery, make him do what he want. Some people call it a man you must. Man you must. Anything I say, you must do it. You eat balahu and steal cuckoo. Balahu is a type of fish. Cuckoo made from corn. Now, someone who passed gas, unpleasant smelling gas, and fellas in school, people who went to school, sometimes you used to have those benches, and somebody sit on one end of the bench and rattle the whole bench, and then everybody had to duck because the gas was not too nice to smell, pollute the air. And someone would say, boy, you eat balahu and steal cuckoo? A little cutters. Have a little cutters. A little cutters. Cutters is used to denote a small amount of food, a snack or an appetizer. So while the pot of pilau was cooking on the stove, Miss Davis offered her friends, I too much hitting the woman too hard. So let me say, Mr. David offered his friends biscuit and cheese and told them to have a little cutters now. Have a little cutters in the meantime while the pot on fire. While the pot coming to come. Another one of our sayings. A little is a feast. Well, people who are not disposed to giving away much use the statement to justify that their greed and their selfishness when offering illegal food. You know, sometimes people offer you food. You want this boy, you want that girl, and they're hoping you say no, because they want to eat all. Now, Beatrice cooked a big pot of the famed Grenadian dish called oil down. And she wanted to eat as much as she could, but she had promised Harold a piece, some food. This is a plate of the food, tasty food. She took out a little bit of food from the pot and set it before Harold and uttered the words, "Boy, a little is a feast, A little is a feast." Boy, Harold, you can't do Harold that. He get angry and they go to bad words. And he stormed out of the house. Who you giving that? Where you think I'm a chicken? Now, the same Beatrice was also noted for uttering the following words when she don't want to give. Who beg, wouldn't get. Who don't beg, don't want. Eat little and live long. A saying that warns against eating too much. Some people, they eat and they eat and they eat. They just keep eating. So it points to the dangers of gluttony. What you eat, you save. There are people who are very stingy with their pockets, the money, when it comes to buying and eating nutritious food. Too costly for them. And some people tell them, boy, if you spend the money and buy the food and eat, you might be saving the doctor's bill. And you will avoid sickness because you're nourishing your body. You're nourishing it. But some people still, they see some nice kingfish there, boy. Fish looking nice. The eyes all nice and clear, not red like you see fish in Brooklyn. And they see the fish, but the price turn them off. So they decide, I ain't buying that fish, boy, too expensive. And you know what? They pass away. That person kick the bucket. And they have a big, big, big happy hour. And people who don't even know the man, boy, they eating kingfish was so. The same kingfish. And he didn't want to spend his money to buy, but now the money he leave, they buy a set of kingfish, and people in a happy hour eating kingfish and laughing. Now, who remembers prison bread? Do the prisoners still make bread in the spice aisle? I don't know. You could tell me. But the prison bread was a bread made by the inmates of Richmond Hill Prison. Well, it's still called, now called His Majesty, was Her Majesty's Prison. The Royal Grenada Police Force, Her Majesty's Prison, and we say we independence. But that bread was largely distributed to hospitals and what people used to call the poorhouse. Back then, boy, people used to say some kind of things, one places, poorhouse and crazy house, and well, the early English in Grenada were worse than that. They called it the crazy house. They called that before the lunatic asylum, calling people lunatic. But the prison bread was a very tough bread, and it filled you up, made you feel good. You see, the prisoners were made to walk. Back then, they used to go to the Cemetery Hill and other places and, clean the grass, the bush growing between the graves. They used to make them walk. You have measure in my belly. Well, a fella called Hang Up. Well, he loved to eat. Very good appetite he had. And Hang Up devoured everything in sight. He was like my partner, rest in peace, Mush. We used to go all up, travel far and wide to buy all kind of head, goat head, this head, pig head, all kind of head to cook. And some people were afraid, some of my friends were afraid to eat by him because they were afraid he gave them a cockhead to eat. I'm talking about a full cockhead. They were afraid he gave them that to eat. Right. So hang up now, enough to eat. And he ate anything that he could find. So when his aunt put a little bit of food in front of him on a plate, he shouted, "Tanti, what happened, eh? What happened? You measuring my belly or what? Eh? You measuring my belly? All saltfish sweet." Well, the mighty Sparrow made those words popular when he sang the calypso by that name, saltfish. Saltfish is another word for codfish. One time I said saltfish and a woman told me, "Boy, don't say that. Don't say saltfish, say codfish." Well, anyway, Sparrow said all saltfish sweet. Well, if you believe that, you have a lot to learn. All saltfish sweet. You steady. Eat till your belly busts. Eat all you can. And someone would say, better belly bust than good food waste. What that person is actually saying is better to act greedy and eat all you can rather than let the good food go to waste. The words of a gluttonous person. Better belly bust than good food waste. You ever burn coloring? Now the sugar is burned to produce a dark liquid that is used to give chicken and meats a dark color. And the liquid is known as coloring. And some people are very good at making the coloring, you know. And it was and is frequently used to stew meats. Now people from the West Indies, they came to Brooklyn, the bad parts of America, and they used to still do burn coloring. And it was not surprising to find firemen appearing at their doors when neighbors called to see that apartment was on fire. Well, now, when you're burning coloring, you gotta hide the smoke detector. Put it somewhere, because it will go off. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. The motto of the biblical Epicurean. And I know people who fit this description. Pork a pork, no beef. A saying that pointed out that life was the same every blessed day. No change. We eating the same damn thing. Pork a pork, only pork, no beef. A person was eating pork and was not able to go to the next level and eat the more expensive beef. Had to stick with pork. Stuff it down your gullet. A saying that refers to eating ravenously. One fellow was eating so much, I didn't tell you what he was eating. And the woman shouted, "What are you eating so? Boy, you come out of jail or what? Yeah? Take your time now. What are you eating so?" And that was often said in vexation. You come out of jail? Dolores' husband took the whole pot of food she cooked, informed her he was carrying it to share with his friends. She became angry and said to him, "I don't believe you one bit. You're lying like hell. You're lying like horse trotting. You want to stuff all the food down your gullet. You ain't giving no friend the food." And finally, about the kitchen utensils, the pot. Whenever food or water seeped through the edge of a closed pot on a lighted stove, it boiled over. I think it was Howard Blaze who said that Grenada is like milk on fire on a stove. Things seem to be going good, and you turn your back, the milk boil over. And so he meant that, well, anything could happen in Grenada anytime. The state of our politics, how it has been, and like it to be. But that's what Sir Hobart Blaze said. Now, when the food was not quite cooked, but it was slowly reaching to the point, the pot was coming to come. A statement that accurately addressed you or your feelings all in your pot. So, you think I'm talking to you? What I say fall in your pot. Now, those who are accusing others of exactly what they were guilty of were creating a situation where the pot was telling the kettle its bottom was black. Now, if the open part of the pot was turned down, well, we used to say upside down. We change up a lot of things, in other words, upside down. Whole pot, cooking device, very popular in Grenada, still used. It served its time, and still serving its time. But it was so popular before the gas and the electric stoves were introduced into Grenada. And who remembers charcoal, the fuel used in the coal pot? Still used. I cook in a one pot. Everything will be cooked. One pot. Everything mixed up in there. A one pot. A watch pot never boils. The literal meaning here is a pot will boil at a certain temperature and will take a given time. So you sit down there like my pee looking at the pot. You think that's going to speed up the process? Eh? The meaning is that agonizing while waiting for something to happen, it cannot make it happen faster. You know? It take its time and cook. Imagine a situation where you are intent on keeping far away from someone. You're feeling that person. You're actually feeding that person with a long spoon. And there are people that feed them with a long spoon, you know. Stay far. Now, if you sat on the table and adhere to all the etiquette and all the good manners that the elders taught, you are exhibiting good table manners. So you don't want to sit down on a table and break wind. Some people don't care, you know. They'll do that. It was not good to expose yourself to harsh criticism if you were not able to bear it. Some people could give, but they can't take. In other words, stay away from the kitchen if you can't stand the heat. You see people are getting vexed on Facebook and social other avenues, and they're actually getting mad. They could give, but they can't take. Huh? Whenever you had enough work to do, it simply meant that, well, you have enough on your plate. I'm not going to give you more. And if you have a good boss who will tell you that, you know, you have enough on your plate. I won't put no pressure on you. But there are some of them, the more they could put on the plate, on your plate, the more they'll put. When the occasion rose and you found yourself in an awkward situation and feeling of uselessness came over you, boy, you're like a kitchen without a knife. Uselessness. Finally, it is good to use your initiative and seek knowledge. Make the effort and not try or intend that people will spoon feed you all the days of your life. Get up and feed yourself. There's some lazy people, you know. They ain't working, but they want people to give them things. If you're able, get up and feed yourself. Are they here by the galley? Those words were often uttered by people who were cooking. When asked, what going on? How things? They reply, I just stay here by the galley, man. Well, the galley is a place on a ship where food is cooked. However, people use the words to reference the kitchen. Who remembers the pan cup? There's a man used to sell pan cup. St. George's Market Square. Cans that held the powdered milk and Milo. You remember Milo and Ovaltine cans were converted into drinking cups. We call that pan cup. But when a pan cup get hot, they could burn your jail, They were fitted with handles made from the same material, and the area around the edges were made smooth. Now, during the 1950s, the 60s, and perhaps the 70s, the pan cup proved to be an invaluable utensil for poor people who could not afford expensive chinaware. The chinaware that our parents used to put in the cabinet, you can't touch it, was decoration. Nobody drinking from those expensive chinaware. Cups, plates, knives, forks, and spoons were called wares, and children were told, boy, wash the wares. Girls, wash the wares. Washing the wares in a time when children were given things to do, even before they went to school. So yes, for my book, We Kind of Talk, Anthony Wendell, The Rakes. Pass it on. Don't take it with you to the grave, so that those who come after you will have an easier time knowing what life was. God bless.